Six-pack Lapadat. I got my man Penna, and we were just talking about dogs and how quickly time flies, man. You get a couple dogs that are like young, and all of a sudden they're like senior dogs. And you were saying, um, you get close to some major events, and you're like, how would I react if I lose one 2 weeks before, a week of? And everyone's different, but I know the greatest upset in sports history was 42 to 1 odds. Only one bookmaker in all of Vegas, which is a betting town, took 42 to 1 odds that Buster Douglas would beat Mike Tyson. And a few weeks before he fought Mike Tyson, his mother died. And it changed him. He went in there and he was like a man possessed. And he got dropped and like got off the canvas and the whole nine, man. He like it was the fight of his life, and he pulled off the biggest upset. That's sports, not just boxing history, like sports history. So you never know. But dude, it would be earth shattering, heartbreaking when you lose dogs, like or anyone, obviously. But it is tough, my friend. It is tough.
Yeah, I get that 100%. And like that made me think of like what happened to me prior to Worlds, with the issue with my dad and everything. And it changed me also. So what I mean by that is I approached training differently after all of that happened to him than prior. And like the year before, also when he was in hospital, like I also changed my approach to training. So every time something major happens to us, like whether it be a parent getting sick or like your dog dying or something like that, like you said, I think sometimes you're not really aware of how it can change you and how things can be different for you. But yeah, here we are now, and like 3 weeks out from Sheffield, I'm approaching training way differently than I used to approach training like a couple of years ago, and part of that reason is my dad. So, like you said, it changes us, and sometimes it's our role to be changed for the better and not like let all of those emotions bring us down and you know uh, ingrain us into like a destructive feeling or a thought process or a process like you beating yourself up in training, which I've like been capable of doing that in the past, but nothing great comes off of that. So I think it's cool sometimes to be able to reflect upon that and learn for the best.
They say, like, for instance, if you break a glass and then you put the glass back together, even if you took every single piece of that glass and put it back together, you will never have the same glass as you had before. It's a glass again, but it's not the same glass. Just like
Yeah,
the man who stands in the river that he stood in before, it's not the same man, it's not the same river.
yeah,
It's
100%.
never going to be the same. Everything changes you. And you're 2022 and then you're 2023, which are entirely different, separate from when you first won the title in 2021. And you will never be that same guys who were in 2021 after what you experienced in those 2 years.
Yeah,
Like the
100%.
highs, the lows.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, it's completely different. And I think in a way we're afraid to change, like realizing that, yourself in 2021 or 2020 or whatever is not the same. And we're both like a sports fan in general. And sometimes you see athletes and you're like, oh, after that happened to him, he was never the same anymore. Like whether it be a positive things or a negative thing, um, sometimes you just have to accept that you might not be the same. You might not view things the same way you used to. And I think that's fine because that's part of life. We grow old, we evolve, we change. Um, and yeah, it's funny to reflect. And the thing is, because I document a lot of things for YouTube, Insta, whatever, I can
Mm.
like go back to those moments for me and look at some videos of me training like in 2020 or 2021. And like being able to compare that to how I am today, it's funny sometimes, to just see the difference.
What is it in terms of training wise?
Um, I think I was way, way more an emotional lifter than I am right now. in especially like 2020, 2021. Um, because now I'm like able to reflect a lot more. Whereas, like, that's something I talked about, like for my 2022 prep for Worlds. Um, let's say I had a single to do on squats. And if someone was telling me, hey, that single wasn't to depth, I wasn't like, okay, then, next session, I'm trying to improve upon that. I'm doing this, I'll do that. I was like, okay, I'll retake how many times necessary that same weight and make it like count in terms of depth, let's say if it was for squats. And so sometimes instead of taking like one single with 250 kilos, I was doing like 5 or 6 singles with 250 kilos in the same session, just because I was like that dude, you know what I mean?
Mm. Dude,
Whereas
I
now,
remember.
like I wouldn't make that same mistake again, for sure.
Here's the thing. I remember that dude. It's funny, you know, it's not a long time ago. I
Yeah.
remember 2021 Worlds, hanging out and all of us in Sweden. And it was like a unique world championships. That's the first one we saw Turbo, like I saw Turbo Tiff. I hadn't seen Leah's since like 2019. Hadn't seen you either, I guess.
Yeah,
Like just
same,
on
yeah.
like podcasts. But so it was a unique world because we all saw each other for the first time. When I saw you in 2019, we didn't know each other, but that's when we first met. But in 2021, we had been doing podcasts. We had been doing like we'd been talking, but it's the first time we all got out of the COVID lockdowns and started talk and like hung out in real life. So such a unique world. All of us, not just me and you guys, but like all of the people that we'd been talking to on podcasts and everyone had been interacting with finally met in person and we were all hanging out. And right then, that was right before you will have like really boomed into what you are now. Now you're a two-time world champion. And you were like, when we first met in Sweden, and it's like, Penna, how you been doing? And that would be the first time we hung out like friends. You were just on the cusp of winning your first world title and everything else that's happened now, which is like, it's crazy what 2 years can happen. The difference between your 2022 and 2023, and like what you thought was a high in 2021, it got so much higher in 2023. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because um we're we're always like, oh, this meet is will be the biggest meet of my career, whatever. And every single time you're like, oh no, actually the next meet will be the biggest meet of my career. And I think what was so cool during that period of time, at least for me, was like I had my people around me. And I think that's what I attribute the most my success to is that, whenever I'm training very, very hard or I'm going in, like, let's say I'm going through a rough phase, like I have other athletes that I can look around and see them also go through that. And let's say like Leah, when I lost Worlds in 2022, Leah didn't make weight that year. So we both lost for different reasons, but we both lost the same year. And so, it wasn't just like everybody succeeds but me. And then sometimes you're like 2023, Tiff succeeded, she won, and then she like kind of set the tone for us, for Lee and myself, who were like, oh, she did it again. Like now we have to follow. So I think that's the coolest thing is like being able to link up with people that experience the same, like the highest of your highs and also the lowest of your lows. And through all
Mm.
of that, like I've never been alone. And also with the like powerlifting community, like I had so much support in 2022 when everything went down in spiral for me. And also like my qualifier meet for Worlds 2023 was in March, like last year. Um, and it was basically if I didn't do like the total at that meet, I wouldn't be able to compete at Worlds because I had bombed out at Euros. And so the thing is, I wasn't sure that my squat would pass because the squat was the reason I bombed out from Euros. And so at that meet, for me, it was just a qualifier meet. But, I trained a lot. I trained very seriously for that. And so some people showed up And I remember vividly, like on the front row of the venue, people were having like the silent worker t-shirts, and they were waving the t-shirts as I was squatting. And so, when you see all of that, you're like, that that means a lot to people. And then I was able to talk to some guys after the event. They were like, oh, we did like 8 hours of train to come see you live because we don't have a lot of money. And so taking the car would have cost too much. So we took a night train in order to be able to be here. And so, I've never been alone. And I think that's what I'm the most proud of. I think if you win alone, that sucks, man. If you have a whole team around you when you win and you were able to celebrate that and share that with everybody, that's the coolest thing. So I think that's what I'm really, really grateful for, and I feel fortunate.
You guys, in terms of like what's going on in France, it's your crew is super tight. And the fact that you have like world champions around you like this who are going through the same thing. There's so many people who have like it's unique period to be a one percenter in a sport and to feel these highs and everything that goes with it, the lows and everything that goes with it. Most people are isolated because how unique is it to be a world champion in any sport? So you walk into a gym, if there's like a guy who even podiumed, it's crazy. Or made it, that guy's going to the worlds. That guy's going to the world championships. That's crazy. For you guys to all be together in training together and linking up and hanging out and celebrating, going on trips and everything. Like this, it's so unique. It's like the Beatles. It's like the Beatles are together. It's so many talented people found each other by chance. And now this period, we've had this conversation before, but it is entirely unique. I don't know
Yeah.
how long, we don't know how long these time periods are going to last, but this is crazy that all you guys found each other. Like Turbo Tiff won best lifter in 2022. You know, I don't know, man. And you guys are all going to Sheffield now.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. It's like we're all in prep for Sheffield, which like wasn't the case for me last year. It was the case for Tiff and Leah, but and like a couple of weeks ago we were like in New York, and so when we were pulling out in the gym, like people were freaking out. But for us, it was just like a group of friends going to train. And then I remember I messaged Taylor Atwood to come lift with us. And so it was like, oh, sure, let's go. And then, just imagine like random day you go to the gym and you see like 4 world champions, 5 world champions, because Gavin also was with us one day. And what I would say is, obviously, like I don't have the same relationship I have with Leah and Tiff than the one that I have with Taylor and Gavin, for instance. But we all agree upon the same like values as athletes, and I would say as individuals, which is like you always strive for progression, you always try to be better, you always like push everybody else around you, because that's the only way you get pushed also. And when we train together, like I don't care that Tiff squats 150 kilos and that I squat 250 kilos. It doesn't matter. It's not like that. It's more so if I see her like train hard with a lot of intent and accomplishing great things, then that pushes me to do so. And I don't care about like how many kilos she lifts or she doesn't lift. It's more so about the intent and what we're trying to accomplish when we're training. And so that was so special when we got to train with Taylor and Gavin, because it's you're training alongside and in front of world champions. And so at some point I was squatting and in front of me I had like Leah, I had Taylor, and in my head I was like, oh, I'm squatting in front of like maybe two of the best squatters of our sport, like two of the goats of our sport. And that was so cool. Like you can't really find words to describe it. Besides, I think that will be a story I'll tell my kids when I'll be like 60 years old. I'll tell them, hey, you know what? At some point I was pretty good at the sport, and then I got to squat. It's as if in MMA, you have the champion, and then he's sparring with another champion, and another champion is like in the background looking at it. That's insane. Like you can't write anything better than that.
Oh, dude, it's like when you look back at your old YouTube videos, it must be crazy nostalgic. Especially if you look back at some of your videos before you achieved what you achieved, before all this has happened. And you look at those videos now and be like, this guy don't know. This guy's got no idea. He don't even like he might be hoping, he's dreaming, but I seen the last silent worker in December. Dude, what the shit was that all about? What's going on, man? It's like you're at a rock concert. I know why was it so big? Why these people were going crazy? It was literally like it looked like a mini Sheffield. What is
Yeah.
going on, man? How did this happen?
I think to your point, when I started, I remember like I can't find that video anymore because it wasn't on my channel. Like I did a collab like years ago with a guy, and so I was coaching him, and so he said like he was filming, and during that video I said one day I'll be world champion, and we don't have that footage anymore because I can't find that video again. But what I think is we're just I'm just a guy. Like me personally. Like you see me walk in the street, I'm just a guy. You can't tell. Like, for instance, if Jesus walks in the street, you can tell, like, oh, that's a big guy. He probably lifts a lot of weight. For me, like, if I have a hoodie on, I have a jacket on, like, you couldn't say I deadlift 200 kilos, I'm two-time world champion and stuff like that. And what I would say is, because I'm just a guy, I think people can relate a lot to that, where like I started powerlifting. I started like general like weight training. I was 40 something kilos. I was very, very skinny. Um, I know I was a student. Like I was more interested in the video games than anything else. And so when you see a guy like that being able to achieve what I've achieved, so not necessarily to that world champion extent, but just like being in physical shape, having a great physique, being able to lift good weights and stuff like that, I think it shows people it's possible. And um, what I would say is we all show people it's possible no matter what. So you can have somebody like Tubertif, like who she's like very, very short in terms of height. She'd probably be mad at me for saying that, but she's very, very, very short,
Notice the
very
hesitation when
light.
you were saying it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
were
I
looking
was
you
trying
were
to
looking
find
for a
the
different
right
word.
way.
You were for a second you
Yeah,
looked for a
yeah,
different
yeah.
word and you're like, yeah, fuck it. I'll just say what
Yeah,
it is. It's
yeah.
short. She's short.
That's
It
why
is.
that's why I took a second to pause. But she's very short, very light, and she proves to people a lady her frame can do what she can do. And then you have Leah, who's like more towards your standard range, I would say, of female adults, and she does like crazy stuff. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have people like Jesus, people like Sonita, who are like those heavier weights that look very massive, but deadlift and squat a lot of weight. So what I mean by that is, what I would say the beauty of our sport is first, the barrier of entry is very low. You don't need to be very athletic in order to participate in powerlifting. And then with all of those champions that we have, all of those athletes that we have, we all prove to people you don't need to have a certain frame or to be built a certain way or in order to achieve great things. And I think that's what's actually interesting people in France is they see me that lift 200 kilos. They're like, oh, that's a 66 kilo lifter. That's the lifting 300 kilos. Then what's preventing me from doing that? And also on my end, I'm trying to give them the means to do so because of like my YouTube videos or the Insta posts that I do where like I'm showing people, hey, here is how like I'm doing 300 kilos and here is how I did it. And then just like show the way that I came along and then also how I got here. And I think that's what's like rallying people behind it. It's more so like everybody can achieve greatness to a certain extent as long as you work hard, you train intensely for a long time, like you don't find any excuses like, oh, my genetics or my whatever, we don't care. You just have to work. And I think that resonates with a lot of people in France.
Thing is, you were like you might be bigger than Russ at this point. You might be bigger than Russ, dog. I don't know if Russ is pulling in the crowd you're pulling in. Russ has a meet in Houston. I don't think he's pulling in what you're pulling in Paris. It's crazy. And your social media traction is nuts. When you post, it's crazy how many likes, shares, and everything. It is absolutely bonkers what's going on around you. And you got like you obviously have again, you got like a dream team around you, which helps because it's like when you go to see the movie and you're like, who's the cast? And you're like, well, it's starting Leonardo DiCaprio. Wow, I love Leo. He never makes a bad movie. Who else is in it? And then you bang off all these co-stars and it's all straight killer. And you're like, you got me. That's what it's when you guys roll around, it's kind of like that. But the levels in which you guys are reaching at this point is staggering, man. Absolutely staggering. I knew you were big. You've been big for a hot minute. This this year, do you think it was Worlds that tipped you over?
Yeah, I think the whole storyline of like me losing everything, and then I was honest about it, and I take a lot of pride in that, because sometimes people lose and then they get butt hurt and then they come up with excuses like, oh, this happened or that happened. When 2022 happened to me, I lost everything. I showed it. I was like, I just lost. There's no shortcut. There's no excuse. I just lost. I just got my ass beat 100% everywhere. And the fact, I think, that I showed that to people was like resonating with them, because we all fail, we all lose. But then some people hide it. And then I decided to just show it and own it. And then, but I was like, you know what? I'm like this low right now, but like keep watching and I'll climb back up. And then, like I said, I had that qualifying meet in March. And that was honestly the first meet I saw so many people like tuning in to watch me lift. And I was like, whoa, like it's crazy.
Really?
Uh,
And you had like this is after you lost and hadn't come back yet.
yeah, yeah. And but I think that's why people showed up. It's because they cared about it, because they were like, oh, like that guy got his ass handed to him, and now he's trying to do the right thing to come back. And I would say that's why people were so involved in that story. And at that moment, I hadn't mentioned my dad yet. No, nothing, because we mentioned that after when we actually did that podcast to recap that event for me. So I think it was just really that story of like somebody that lost and then he's trying his best to come back up, and that resonated with people. And then, obviously, that was after that was Worlds for me. And I think I just showed to people that I learned my lesson. And then what you want to know is we all watch those stories of somebody learning his lesson, and then you want to see how he does then, after that. It's like I watch a lot of anime, I watch a lot of manga, and then you got a guy going through like a phase, a training camp, whatever, and then he's going to face up against somebody that beat his ass 1 season ago, 10 episodes ago, and you're like, oh, now how is he going to adapt and how is he going to fight him next? And then, obviously worlds happen. And yeah, I think Worlds was probably one of like those big things where it happened. I just showed to people I lost everything, got my ass beat, but I still worked. I tried to reinvent myself, and then it happened. But yeah, I would say it was more so the storyline behind it, where you got a guy that's world champion, French champion, European champion, loses everything, and then has to come back up. And that's, I think, what made people care about me as an athlete was, I showed them you can be great and then be like suck and then try to be great again.
Here's the thing, too. There's a couple pieces, and then I got a question at the end of this. But so not only that, you were incredibly open. You came on the podcast, and I'm sure you talked about it elsewhere as well. But I remember you were incredibly open about the personal side with your father. And then the moment that got me, and this is all on video on the podcast, the whole nine, but you had said you were telling your dad, and again, you were nominated fourth off podium. And this is your comeback. You were the underdog. It was a comeback underdog story. Everything your dad was facing, and you described it. You didn't recognize it. How scary that was. This guy was a pillar of strength in your life. And when you see him again and you didn't even recognize him, and how it made you felt, how you felt at the time, and like everything that was going on, you lost everything, and you're coming in, you're nominated fourth, and there's so many lions, alphas showing up on the 66 kilo class. It was probably the best 66 kilo world championship cast we've ever seen. and you're nominated fourth, coming back from all this, and your father, who had never shown up at any of your international competitions ever, said, I'm going to show up at this one, and was like, you're going to win this. And of all the ones that he shows up at, it's the one that you're nominated to finish off podium. You have the worst situation possible for 66. You're coming back from the 2022 disaster, and it's killers all over. And that's the one that your father, whom you had totally just opened up with everything that's going on with, said, I'm coming. And I believe in you. I think you're going to win. And you're like, I'm going to win this for you. And you put it out there before it happened. And you're like, it has to happen. This is destiny. I'm destined to be number one. And you show up at the World Championships and nobody has a reason to believe. And you're like, this is going to happen today. And that is where it was straight out of a movie that, holy shit, it's come down to this, and he pulled it off. And so often in life, you don't get the payoff. You believe, you hear the story and everything, you don't get the payoff. And this unfolded exactly how you could write it. And I remember around that time, maybe even the same podcast, you told me, how amazing it would be to be an athlete like Russell Orhe, who would be comparative to like a Mike Tyson who destroyed people. And people were afraid to say you're in that weight class. You better move weight classes because you're in Russell's weight class. Good luck. It's Russ. It's always Russ. Russ is going to do what he does. A dominant champion creating a dynasty. The guy who's invincible. What would it be like when people talk about you like that? When all the 83s can be in the room, when you walk in the room, those 83s get a little quiet. They get a little quieter because they had nothing to say when you're around. And with you, everybody's always saying something. As a matter of fact, when you show up, they're not even expecting you to win. And some of them they're always going to be able to say something because he's vulnerable. And every time you show up, you're vulnerable. You'd be like, man, I could be defending world champion. And I swear to God, I'm still the underdog. I'm vulnerable. I don't get that respect. And I remember telling you, but that's why people love you. That's why. And I think the only reason why that world championship felt the way it felt is because you were the underdog. If you were Russ walking into that situation, it doesn't feel the same. The reason why it was magical and special is because, like, holy fuck, his dad's there and everything, and he's not expected to win this. Not by the numbers. Like friends and everything, sure, but like I'm not by the numbers. And when you show up to that last deadlift and that scene where your dad's like, oh my God, we're coming down to deadlifts. Like, are you the best deadlifter of this crew? And you tell your dad, today I will be. And you pull it off, and watching you hit the platform, the look on your face, and like, it happened. People are watching like, that's why with Russ, it's not like, oh my God, it happened. It's like, yeah, of course it happened. With you, it was like, oh my God, it happened. Oh my God, he did it. You can't have that. You can't have both. And I'm wondering now that it's all done and we're on the other side of it, how you feel about it all. Maybe you still would like, okay, maybe now let me be dominant or whatever. Let me have both. I don't know.
I think there's something I want to really come back to quickly was what you said, that sometimes you create a scenario in your head of like, if there's a perfect day, that's that perfect day. So obviously that happened to me this year at Worlds, where like you said, I had promised my dad like 2 months prior to that, I'm going to win. And then I remember when I told you that on the podcast, you were like a little worried for me, because you were like, man, that was a tough like promise you did to your dad, like 2 months out, and you were fourth and everything. And the thing with that was, I had hoped for that perfect scenario a year prior at Worlds 2022. Because so what happened was, like I said, during that period of time, my dad was in hospital. So that's where he got a big, like life-changing surgery. And like, that's where he wasn't the same anymore and everything. So he was in the hospital for 2 months, 3 months. I can't remember exactly. And then the day he is like cleared to get out of the hospital and go back home is the day I leave for South Africa for Worlds 2022. And so what happened was my flight was late enough so that I could wait him at home, like be able to spend an hour with him and then go to catch my plane to South Africa. And so what happened a week prior to that, I like tweaked my back and I did everything. So I was, let's say I was back 80, 90% of my strength at that moment. So I know that, and I have this vision in my head. Like right now, I'm sitting in like at my dad's place, and so I can see exactly the chair he was standing in. And so in my head, I envisioned the fact that in a week from now, he'll be watching me compete at Worlds, him staying in that chair, watching at the TV, you know. And so I leave for South Africa, get there. I got COVID there. So stayed 2 days, 3 days, can't remember exactly, like in the bed, like not being able to wake up, not being able to just walk around and everything. And so things get better the day off. Like I wake up the morning of Worlds where I'm supposed to compete and I feel better than the days before. So I'm like, cool. And then my dad sends me a message and I can't remember if I said that message to you and I'll try to remain calm as I'm like saying the message in my head. So the message was strength lies in the heart of man, and in order to be brave, you have to face hard things. And so he just sent me that with a heart. And you know, my dad was, you know, he's a Greek dad, he's a Mediterranean dad, so you know, he's the tough of the family. So it's very, very rare that my dad sends me those messages. So always like, you know, giving me lectures and lessons about life, but never so with like a heart and everything at the end. So for me, it was very, very special. So mind you, I'm like dead in the bed. I wake up. I'm like, okay, so today's Worlds. I see that message of my dad. And then I'm like, okay, then, you know, I'll have to pull a miracle today. So today it's going to happen. And so I do my weigh-ins, I do my warm-ups for squats. I hadn't squat in 4 days because of like me getting sick and everything. So I do 70 kilos, it's fine. 120 kilos, it's fine. 170. Then at 170, my leg start to shake. I'm like, that's a heavy weight now for me. So I'm a little anxious about it because like your legs aren't supposed to be shaking with warm-up weight the day of Worlds. So then I think I take 200 kilos and then even worse. And then in order to finish warm-ups, I was taking 220 kilos and then I grinded the rep out. So that's your last warm-up that you grind out. But that was hard. And so at that moment I was like, oh, then, you know, I'm in for a treat now. But you know what? There's two things. So first, I had the sentence that my dad sent me the morning of that was like just running in circle in my head. And then the second thing was every time I was stepping foot on that platform, I was, you know, it was like I had an hallucination that I was seeing exactly where my dad was at home and him watching the TV, watching me lift. And so in my head, I was like, you know, I have to show this man strength. I have to show him that, you know, I'm his son and he educated me well and he showed me how it's like to pursue strength, to pursue greatness. And so after I squatted 220 kilos, grinder, warming up, I was able to lift 250 kilos on that day on squats, which
And
is
let me tell
like,
you something, dude, you want to talk about a breathtaking display of heart and grit. That squat, I remember, like, I could not believe what I saw. I remember, like, you can grind, but that was one for the books. I'll never forget what it felt like to be there in person. It's different watching you grind in the gym. It's one thing. Watching you fight like that, I remember I couldn't, it lasted forever. And you could almost, I could feel myself willing it, please. Like, I remember telling myself, fuck, get this. I think everyone watching was like, couldn't believe what they were watching when you were struggling to stand up with this weight. And it's so, it really, watching somebody fight with the weight of the world on their shoulders to stand up with it, it is metaphorical in life in general. And anyone who knew your story and seen you fighting to stand up with that weight on your shoulders and refusing to give, it was breathtaking. Remember, after you hit that, you walking by the commentary booth. And I was like, oh shit, there's Penn at the corner of my eye. Like, what are you doing over here? And you put out your fist bump and said, how you like that for a grind? How you like that for and dude, you gotta get back there. But I was like, it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful, like we and the thing is too, you had that breathtaking moment. And even though in 2022, at the time you wouldn't know that you finishing off podium, bombing arrows, all of that, you wouldn't know it. But that needed to happen to make 2023 happen and make this monumentally special. And it's
Yeah.
cliche to say, people say all the time, like, you know, why is this happening to me? This tough, whatever. But the bigger picture, this is exactly what has to happen. This is going to make you. That moment you thought you fell, everyone else was like, I can't believe he left it on the line, injured, sick with COVID, and just scrapping it out to finish fifth, showing all the heart. You went out on your shield like we expect Penna to go out on his shield. And you needed it to be like that for 2020 to set the stage for 2023.
Yeah.
Dude, it was perfect.
100%. But at that moment, that
Mm,
wasn't the scenario I had in mind. The scenario
right.
was like all of the odds are against me. I tweaked my back a week ago. Like there's that thing going on with my dad. COVID, I'm sick, everything. Today I'm winning. Like after that 250 kilo squat, as stupid as it may sound right now, in my head, I was sure I was going to win. And so it didn't happen, like you said. I gave everything that I had on that day on that third squat, and then I didn't have anything left in me, and so finished fifth at Worlds 2022. But the thing is, everything happened right in 2023, but I already tried to make that happen in 2022. So what I mean by that is I still had that thought and that belief that I would be able to express my strength. You know what I mean? I would be able to make it happen. And for me, even if my dad wasn't there physically in 2022, at that moment, I felt that was the moment I needed to give him that win in order to show him that strength. You know what I mean? Because that's when he was fresh out of his surgery. He had spent months in hospitals, not being able to drink, to eat, to speak. So for me, it was very meaningful for me to give him that win in 2022, and that didn't happen. So yeah, it happened in 2023, but it happened because I kept believing that I would be able to make it happen. And like you said, I didn't know at that moment at Worlds that things will go just south from here. For me, that would be like worse and worse and worse. Like every meet, that would be even worse. But even though I went through all of that, I didn't give up. Like I still believed 100% in me that I would be able to come back up and make it happen. And I think when I saw my dad, so I think I went in Greece, maybe was it April, I think. So 2 months out from Worlds pretty much. And when I saw him, I think I kind of saw myself like not giving up. And so that's why I went to the extreme of like promising him a victory at Worlds 2023. And I'm glad I did because that forced me during some tough moments. I was like, you don't give up. No matter how dark things may seem, how hard they may appear to you. I always thought like the hell that my dad endured for the months a year ago, a year prior, and I was like, that compared to what he experienced, that's nothing. So just shut up and carry on and move on. And that's what I want to say to people is sometimes you won't make it happen right away. Sometimes you'll think that's the moment, that's the day, and that won't happen. And it will maybe leave you like heartbroken, shattered, whatever. You just have to find that strength to move on. And yeah, 2023 was that perfect scenario, but this came a year like too late for me. You know what I mean? Because that win at Worlds, I wanted to give it to my dad in 2022, not in 2023. So yeah, it's and I think that's maybe what resonated with people, because I know that after the fact that we talked about it, and by the way, I just want to thank you for allowing me to open myself like that in a podcast, because that's not something you do in a YouTube video. You don't just like pull the camera, hey, my dad is sick and he's got cancer, and nah, that's not how it goes. It
I
just
still remember that podcast. You weren't going to.
yeah, yeah, no,
You
not
were
at all.
humming and
Not at all.
hawing.
Yeah,
You had alluded to it on a previous podcast, alluded, but stopped.
yeah.
And then you were alluding to it again, stopped, and then paused and thought, kind of like when you said the word short for Turbo Tiff, paused, and then said, um, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna say it. And
Yeah,
then you just opened up and you just opened up.
because
Not and
I didn't want that to be an excuse, in 2022. Because you don't use that as an excuse. You know what I mean? Um, that's how I was raised. Like you keep those things to you. And then I thought that maybe that could help people out that are maybe experiencing the same things that I was experiencing. And the thing is, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I opened up talking with you, and that people were aware of that, because then I was able to talk about it like on my old social media and my own YouTube videos and everything. And I got a lot of messages of people like with their parents, like battling cancer. Maybe some of them were still battling, some of them unfortunately died, but they were like, we're doing great things to make them proud. And that's what I'm trying to do. Even today, like, you know, obviously my dad is, that's not something you recover from like out of the blue and then everything's perfect. He's still, facing a lot of hard things and always battling out. And that's just my motivation right now, to never let go. I don't think I needed a motivation to never let go to begin with, but now that I have one, then it's even worse for me. I'm uh, I'm an even um, you know
you know what I
um
would describe you? A
yeah,
hopeless romantic. That's how you view the world.
yeah,
Like I'm the same way where you view everything like, oh, this is everyone be like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. And you'd be like, nah, everything's falling into place. This is the story. And you'll tell the story. And it's like, dude, that story only rings true in fantasy movies. That's not real, man. And you'd be like, no, it is. It is. Watch, this is going to happen. And then none of it works. And you're like, no, okay, now I got it. That was chapter 2. Chapter 3 is when it happens.
yeah,
Chapter 3 doesn't work. You're like, fuck me. All right. Well, this is the last end of the book that it happens, but it's going to happen. And then it happens because you believe, you force it to happen. You keep showing up. And yeah, man, for sure, I see that in you.
yeah. It's now like, I have that mindset for Sheffield. Like right now, the way I view myself training wise, the way I experience myself training, the way I view it, the way I feel it, it's the same as it was prior to Worlds 23. It's the exact same. Um, so yeah, so that's why Sheffield will I'll try to bring that same self that I was some months ago in Sheffield for that last run. And then, after that, I think if I'm able to do what I think I'm able to do and accomplish what I'm able to accomplish, then things could have a good turn in France for powerlifting. Because, I'm
Well,
like, imagine I win Sheffield, like how things would go crazy in France.
holy sh,
You know what I mean? So I'm like,
dude.
I'm like trying to wield that hope on me of, if I make it happen for France, I think that will be big in France.
Well, okay. So first off, yeah, well, I want to talk about all this, but I mean, I got a lot I want to talk about. But just speaking on as well, if I could wrap that up with what also makes it inspirational, Michael Jordan once said, it's one thing to be confident and cocky going into the fourth quarter when you were winning the first, second, and third quarter. If good, sweet, talk your shit, hit the floor with swagger. that doesn't mean nothing. Have confidence and hit the floor with swagger when you're behind. Now let's see
Yeah.
how confident you are when you
100%.
lost all 3 quarters leading it. And that's you. That's the difference. And
Yeah, 100%.
people can say whatever they want, but everyone's got a plan until they get hit. You got hit. You got hit hard repeatedly. And there were points where you had a redemption meet that you didn't even make it due to injury. Like it
Yeah.
got like worse and worse. I remember posters going around saying Team France redemption, and
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
IPF
yeah.
made the IPF
Yeah,
paid
I
somebody to
remember that.
make them, and like there's posters,
I
and
felt
you
so
didn't
bad.
even make it. You didn't even make it to your own redemption meet. So when
Yeah.
people are like, when you're like, dude, it was bad. They're like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
bad? Dude, it was bad. It was. I had an opportunity and boom, boom, boom. Then when you did make it, you bombed and shit. It was like, yeah, it got worse and worse. So when you come back in 2023 and do what you did, it makes it so amazing. That's why people show up to your world's qualifier and are like, dude, we need to get behind this guy. Like this is crazy. And you never lost enthusiasm or belief in yourself. Like it was that guy I just described. That's like, yeah, I told my father I'm going to win this. It was that guy, where it's like you had no reason to believe. That's what makes it such an amazing, I'm so happy that all of this is videotaped and on YouTube and it's been tracked. Your thoughts, your feelings, you doing it. Because at some point, not just yourself, but anybody's going to go back and be like, powerlifters 10 years from now, we're going to double back. And some guys, just like when you find a band that's from 10 years earlier, and like, did you hear about this band I found out? Or they'll hear about the band but not fully appreciate it, and they double back and like, oh, okay, all right, now I know why everyone's into Tupac. You're gonna be Tupac of powerlifting. It's a
You know,
weird
it's
analogy, but people are going to
yeah.
discover you when it's all out there. At some point, people are going to find your YouTube videos. They're going to Google and find the podcast, and they're going to be like, "Oh my god!" And you yourself will double back and look at this, and like, it's such a privilege. This has all been time stamped. And if you weren't as open as you were and you just played it tight, and some people come on podcasts or YouTube videos and they keep it a little tight. They don't open up like you open up. The fact that one day on this podcast, you're like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to say it. And you just opened up.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
It's what I think what you said like illustrates a lot how I feel and how I view things. Like you said, it's easy to talk when you're at home on your couch and you're not competing there with the guys and you don't know how it's like. And then you're like, oh, I could beat them. I could do better than that. Yeah, man, just show up. But if you show up, we don't have that conversation anymore because
Mm.
if you're as good as you say, then you'll win. That's easy. And then the other thing is, I never shy away from a challenge. And so I think not clearly stating your intentions going into a meet as an athlete is shying away from a challenge. I don't need to be 100% sure this person or that person is injured or isn't going to show up in order to be able to say, hey, I'm winning this. And that's why, in a way, I'm like, no, I don't think I will win Sheffield because, greatness, you have to fight until the very, very, very last moment with everything that you have in you in order to be able to achieve it. So, if you're able to say, hey, I'm going to win the next 3 world championships and you're 100% sure about it, then that means you're not facing a lot of challenges in order to do so. And so, like you said, in my career, I would have liked to have that thing where, be that Russell Ori or that Leah Bavwal, which is like, hey, every meet I'm going to show up to, I'm going to win. Unfortunately, that's not the case for me, and that's fine because I had to fight in order to get everything that I had to get in life. Not saying like Russ and Leah didn't, but just I think for myself, it's another extent to another extent. And I think I came to appreciate that about myself, where it's like I'm never going to have an easy day. I'm never going to have an easy rep, but you know what? I'm able to grind for 15 seconds if I need to, so I'm good for that.
Is it better this way now? Do you think? Are you now like, you know
I
what?
don't know. I don't know. Because it's
Yeah,
also cool to be Russ, you know what I mean?
it
So
is.
cool to be
It
Russ.
is.
So
It is.
I
It
don't
is
know.
just different. Yeah. I mean, who knows what the future is going to hold? Maybe you end up like a Russ, because Russ at one point had his Brett Gibbs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
And
And Taylor
I'm
also.
Taylor as well. And I
Yeah.
at one point picked Brett Gibbs to beat Russ. And Russ like, thank you, sir. Took the video clips and ran with it. And I was like, all right, well, that's what it is. But so yeah, who knows what the future's gonna hold. But for now, you needed what you got. You got exactly what you needed for that bump. Talking about Sheffield. So, well, first off, you competed 6 times in 2023.
Yeah.
And you had talked about this, about how you thought, and I think this also adds, well, I know this will add to your popularity, but you use these as like appearances. But you said, I don't show up. You didn't use this exact comparison, but roughly, you don't show up at a basketball game hoping to see LeBron James on the sidelines eating a hot dog. You showed up at the basketball game hoping to see LeBron James play. So for the powerlifting competitions, you said like it's not enough for me just to be there and shake hands and take pictures. They want to see me lift, even if you're not 100%. Even if you just lifted a week earlier at Euros, you show up and you're like, I'm going to lift for these people. They're going to go home and they're going to remember how they felt, because with you, you legitimately are like a rock star who it's lifting is like your way of expressing yourself. Like it's like an art to you when you grind for every rep. Penna, you don't got to go all out. This competition doesn't mean anything. Well, I have 300 people in front of me, sir, and they want to see me. They want to see the grind king grind. They want to see me scrap it out. I'm not peaked. I'm not whatever. I'm gonna give them what I got today, and they go nuts, and they never forget how they felt. And you celebrate like you won worlds afterwards. Because your people are there. Like this
Yeah.
is in France, and these are your people, and you were like, that is a difference. Your appreciation for anyone who shows up for you makes you not be able to sit on the sidelines. And that is one of the reasons I think that you have the following you do in France, because like you show up, they know like Penna's going to give it. And then afterwards, you'll stay 2-3 hours, pictures, whatever anybody wants.
I think um, it's weird because in a way I get that strategy of like you cannot be 100% peaked 6 times a year. So obviously you choose the good competition, the right competition. So Worlds, Sheffield, if you participate in Sheffield, for instance, stuff like that. And I get that. And I think that would be quote unquote the smarter move. But then you have to also view it from a different perspective, is like we're both sports fan. If our favorite team plays once a year or twice a year, and then you have another team that plays 20 times a year, then, okay, you really, really like that team that plays once or twice a year. But then if the other team that plays 20 times a year doesn't play, then you don't see any games. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to participate in a sport where you don't see like your athlete competing, or you don't see any game played never. You know what I mean? So that's why I think in a way it's anti the sports development to be too picky about, oh, no, I'm not doing this meet or I'm doing that meet, but I'll do RP5 singles, because that's not the sport. Because people tune in to watch powerlifting in order to see big weights shifted. You don't tune in to watch the fastest 250 kilo rep ever performed by a 105 kilo lifter. You know what I mean? Um, and so I think that's number one for me. Then number two is when you show up, you see a crowd of 700 people, and you're like, how crazy would that be if I go to like warm up and then they scream my name in order to see me lift and
Was it
to cheer me?
700? Because it was packed.
Yeah, it was 700 to 800. Yeah.
My God, see, I knew it is crazy. And they are going nuts.
Yeah.
Like, we have nothing like that over here. We have nothing like that
It
over
was
here,
late. It
period.
was late also. It was like 9 a.m., 9 p.m., something like that.
This is, I try to tell people, you don't know. Stop. You don't know. And I'm like, none of these people are going to end up in France, or very, very few. And I'm like, you don't know what's going on with the French and
Yeah.
how crazy into powerlifting they are, and how crazy Penna's followers are, and how you guys have a bigger crowd than like American nationals or any of these, man. Worlds. And that's a local meet.
Yeah. And we also had I think it was roughly 30 to 40K views on the live stream, like in total, like at the end. And it wasn't on YouTube, it was on Twitch. So it was harder for people to tune in. And I think concurrent viewers, we had around 2,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch. So, and the thing is, let's picture this that way. We all care about powerlifting. We all care about that sport. Imagine right now I'm telling you, hey, you're going to train in your gym 10 p.m. alone, no nothing, just you and your deadlifts. And then I'm telling you, hey, there's a platform, you can live there. There will be 700 people that will scream out their lungs for you. What do you choose? On that day, I was supposed to train. And I was like, either I'm going to train after the event where I'm drained, I'm tired, I have talked with people every day, all day, I just want to go home and sleep, or I can just like put my singlet on and just live in front of that crowd and have one of the moments of my career as an athlete. Like, I don't know if you've seen the video, but at one point, people were screaming my name when I was squatting. So can you imagine that? Like, that's powerlifting we're talking about. We're not talking about MMA or basketball or football. We're talking about powerlifting. And there's a crowd that screams the athlete's name in order to cheer them up. That's
10
crazy.
kilos more a week after Euros. 10
Yeah.
kilos as a
Yeah.
66. This is not a small, a week, the very next weekend. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's compete again. Up 10 kilos.
Yeah.
That's it's crazy.
Yeah. But I was like, so at first it wasn't sure I was going to do it. Like I said, I had that logical thing in mind where, like you're prepping, you had Euros. What do you do? And then I was like, oh, but I'm still going to train. I'll have to train. And then I won't be able to train prior. I won't be able to train during. So I'll have to train after, and it will be like midnight. And I will have my whole day in me. So woke up 8 in the morning, do everything that I have to do, like volunteer. I also had to be a spotter for, I think, one group on
Oh my
squats.
God.
So woke up, had to do some organization, then had to spot, and then had to compete, and then, everything else. But otherwise, I would have had that whole day, and then I'll have to train at midnight after all of that. Or I can just enjoy myself, have fun. And, not telling like, people have to do what I do, like compete 6 times a year, whatever. I don't think that's the case. But what I would say to powerlifters is I think in general, you're probably able to compete way more than you think. And sometimes it's good for the sport because if you take all of the meets that I had this year, they all created some sort of involvement for people. So basically, my Euros was supposed to be my redemption meet, bombed out. Then had my qualifier meet where, oh, is Pana going to make Worlds or not? Then people cared because of that. And then after that, I think it was probably Worlds. Obviously, people care about Worlds. Then Salon Worker Meet was, the celebration after Worlds. Then what I mean by that is there's always something that will happen during one of those meets, whether it be for you personally as an athlete or for the sport in terms of like involvement for people. And so if I would have competed once, like let's say last year, I'm not doing Euros, then I don't bomb out. And then if I don't bomb out, then that's not the same 2023 for me.
Yeah, even
Because
if it was negative, it had to happen.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
There's
exactly.
always something.
Yeah. That's why I compete so much. And there's also something I'm 29 right now. Obviously, I'm not like that old, but it's obvious, I think, that I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning in terms of my powerlifting career. Hopefully, I'm in the middle, but I'm probably closer to the end than to the beginning. And what I want to do is, once it's all said and done, I want to be able to reflect and be like, I don't regret anything. Like, there's not a single meet that I could have participated in, and maybe it could have been something great, or it could have had a meaning, and then I didn't, and then I regret it. So that's why I did what I did last year, where I competed 6 times. It's because I want to have no regrets, and live to the fullest, and just tell yourself, when I started powerlifting, I was doing meets where 20 people were there and nobody cared. And now I have the chance as an athlete to lift in front of 700 people that will scream in order to cheer me up, that will stay at the venue until 11 in the night to be able to cheer until the very last moment, be able to talk with us, have a photo together and everything. So who am I to like neglect that opportunity that I have? And who am I to take it for granted? Because maybe in 2 years from now, people won't care that much about the sport. And then I'll be like, I didn't enjoy it as much as I could when it was the highest it ever was. So that's why I'm
Mm.
that. Even though that's not like the smartest thing ever, I don't care. That's how I want to participate in powerlifting. That's the kind of experiences I want to live, and that's the kind of mark I want to leave also in that sport.
Well, tomorrow's never promised. So for you to live
100%.
it up while it's there, like for someone to be like, yeah, I don't know if you should have competed a week after Euros. Really? Because how often in anyone's life are you ever going to have 700 people chanting your name, showing up, and hundreds more waiting afterwards to take pictures with you and talk to you about the year you had and everything? And how often will that happen in your life? How often? So if I do it 6 times that year, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
next year, who the flip knows next year, the year after that? And people like, well, I mean, they could try to do calculations like, well, what if that contributes to a shorter career? Maybe I'm going to have a short career anyways. You
Yeah.
don't know that. So why don't I just freaking live up while I can? And not to do another comparison to Tupac, this is kind of weird again, but he died at 25. All right. He's literally the epitome. When he died, he had 5 albums already recorded, 3 movies already recorded, and for the next like 10 years was releasing albums. This is before your time, but long after he had died, they were still putting out new Tupac songs that nobody had heard because he recorded so much because he never took his foot off the gas and would constantly be recording. It's almost as though he's like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but you are going to know me forever, right? And the reason why, not to say it's going to happen to you, it's more he had a passion, a crazy passion, and I think when people see you do your thing, it is the same passion. It is the same. I'm sorry, I can't be in the building and not lift. I'm sorry, I can't be in the building and just help out. I'm sorry. I need to get in there. And then that's also contagious. People like that energy. There's something about that will bring people to gravitate towards you. And how crazy it would be for these people who are like lifting or whatever to look on stage and you're fucking spotting. And you're like, we're gonna it's literally like going to watch a band, and then afterwards the lead singer is like mopping up and like he's a janitor as well, and he's just doing everything. It's you're so humble at the same time. Like it's not even like you recognize these people are here for me and they want to cheer for me. You recognize that, and still in the same moment will humble yourself and be like, let me hop in there and spot in the back. I'm one of 5 guys spotting. I'll throw on a spotting t-shirt and I'm part of the pit crew.
Yeah, that's
Like that,
exactly what
that's
happened.
that's unique too. That's another whole nother, I don't know, dude. I don't even know what to say. It's entirely unique way of approaching things. And I think that's all compounds to your popularity as well as your story and like how much you've given to the sport and this thing grown. Like there's no question you left footprints in the game when it comes to France. You will never be forgotten. I mean, if this is the last of the runs, and it's not, we already know, but you already have. It's pretty crazy, man. But yeah, looking ahead to Sheffield. So we saw the 730 that you posted up in the gym. If you were to calibrate strength wise, is this the strongest you felt? What is going on right now that makes you this confident?
Yeah, yeah. Like it's the strongest I felt. When I had that Euros meet this year where I wasn't, so basically for Euros,
Yeah, yeah.
long
Tell
story
me about that.
short, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel strong. Especially on squats, which showed up because I only squatted 235. Like my prep was kind of all over the place with squats. And so, obviously when like one of your lift is like not going good at all, it's harder to like see the bigger picture and, you know, um, So basically, I was going there all out. Like, for the record, I didn't do 680 because like I sent back the meat. I didn't send back anything. Just on that day, that was my strength. And to that point, I think that's what I was saying earlier, is that if you compete twice a year, that's much more easier to not show your lows. Because, for instance, if I compete 6 times a year and let's say have a 3 months period in during that year where I have a low, if I have a competition at that moment, then that will show. And if I don't have a competition, then that won't show. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so Euros happened during one of my lows. And so that's how and why I got that meet. And so when I had that horrible squat at Euros, so Anissa, who's my wife now,
Oh,
um,
congratulations, dude. You guys
thank
made
you.
it official.
Yeah, thank you. So Anissa, who's my wife now, she, at the moment I failed, she told all of our friends, "Oh, that's a good thing Pana failed because he'll be so pissed at himself. He will work like 10 times the amount rather than if he would have a good meet." And so that's exactly what happened. So
Mm.
right after Euros, I think I had like maybe 12 days in between like Euros and then my next comp, that like the summer meet that I did. And I think on those 12 days, I did maybe 6 or 7 squat sessions. So it was very like very squat focused, very squat oriented, technique, a lot of technique stuff, light stuff, technique. And then that's how I squatted 247.5 at the Salon Worker meet, which is like 12.5 above what I did at Heroes. Obviously, not the same. Like there's a water cut in one hand. Euros versus like more friendly meet. So not saying under the same circumstances I would have the same squat, but the main difference was like the momentum I was feeling, the energy I was feeling when I was squatting. And so that had a big carry out for me because like right now I'm back to those squat numbers, so above 250, 255. I did 260 when I did that 730 kilo total day. And yeah, I think that plays a huge role into that because obviously if I squat, like you take my same bench, my same deadlift, and if I squat 25 kilos less, then that bumps off my total quite a bit. So yeah, but more so than that, right now I'm feeling exactly how I felt prior to Worlds 23, where maybe I'm not the favorite to win. Maybe some people have their training that's showing like good. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm working very hard. I'm doing my best right now, and I feel very strong and very confident. So yeah. So right now I think I'm at my best in terms of training.
Dude, you in Sheffield, oh my gosh. Because
Yeah.
the world record is 710.5.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And your personal best on the platform thus far, 705, right? So I mean you're
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
But you got to take it and push it down the line. Now, if I look at the people who were there, what's going to help you is what happened at Euros with
Yeah. 100%.
Shell, whom you owe a dinner to, sir. You owe
Yeah.
a steak dinner to him and some dinner and drinks, sir.
Yeah. I told him a big thanks when we were on that
He'll
Euros
be at
podium.
Sheffield as a reserve.
Yeah.
He'll be at Sheffield as a reserve. When we all go out, like we did last time,
Yeah.
after, yeah, we got to bring him along and be like,
Yeah.
hey,
I have
man,
to. If things go accordingly, I'll offer him a couple of drinks for sure.
that's right. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? Because that's on me now. You go ahead, tell.
It's on
I
me.
already told the bartender.
Oh
I
the whole
settled on.
night. The whole night it's on
Oh,
me.
it's on me, baby. I won 60K. So
Yeah,
girl,
it's
if
all
if
you.
you win that 60K, you're like, what are you eating tonight? Lobster sound good? You like lobster? Get
Yeah.
yourself some lobster,
We'll
you
do
and the
that for
wife.
sure.
But yeah, because Shell, for anyone listening, the 74s had, at least they still have, but had a really good opportunity because I think Callie and Tim are just soaring with their numbers. For sure they are. Shell and the world record was 790. Shell came around and bumped that bad boy another 10 kilos, and 10 kilos is nothing to scoff at. Now it's 800 kilos for 74s. Now those fellas can probably hit over 800, but it's if they do 810, Instead of being 20 kilos over the world record, they're only 10 kilos over the world record. I mean, Shell's, God bless. He did
Yeah.
his damn thing. He made his presence felt at Sheffield, even if he doesn't get the lift. Now we just found out he's a reserve. So Shell will be there. And oh wow, if Shell gets plunked into the 74s, won't that be interesting? But anyways, so there's that. The 83s, Delaney had been openly dealing with some injuries, hasn't been smashing weights lately on social media. But we'll see what happens because sometimes he plays his cards close to his chest. But he'll get close to that world record and probably look to break it, but not crazy extend it. Is my guess because that's what he's going for last time is to break Russell or his record. He was an inch away, but extend it probably difficult. But I would love if he broke the record because he deserves it because it helps solidify his legacy as well. And you're not going to find a nicer guy than Delaney Wallace. I'm telling you that right now. Um, so okay, that's Delaney. So he's hunting that down. 93s, they're good, but again, they're always in battles, so they're always on the line. If they break it, how far are they going to kick it down the road and extend it? They could, but how far? It doesn't seem like leaps and bounds. If it more looks like on the surface, and I haven't crunched the numbers yet for the preview show, which we're recording this weekend, but it would look like on the surface, kind of like Delaney, break it, but not bump it down the road a lot. And then you have the 105s, which is Anatoly, probably more the same. As a matter of fact, Anatoly was injured during Euros. So if he breaks the world record, cool. I don't think he's destroying it. You have 120, Tony Cliff, probably along the same. If he breaks the record, amazing. Will he destroy it? We'll see. He's got ambitions of 1,000 kilos. Tony does 1,000 kilos, I'll die. That's amazing. But I mean, that's amazing. Especially Tony's 40 years old and like, known Tony for years as well. And then there's Jesus Oliveira. So Tony Jesus. So you got an opportunity. I haven't crunched the numbers yet in terms of percentages. I don't know if have you done that?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah,
Have you?
more or
Okay,
less.
I thought, all right, now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Um, so what do you think it's going to look like?
Honestly, I have that thing, and I think that's the epitome of the hard-headed lifters, where we always see ourselves like doing amazing things in comp. And I think that's how it should be. Like you cannot be in a comp and be like, oh, then I'll be 20 kilos off of my best squat. No, you can't do that. You have to believe in yourself that everything you did in the gym will pay off the way you think it will, and that will allow you to express your best strength. So I'll just tell you my thought process. And like I don't have no holding back, no, like I'm not hiding anything from anybody. So I can say exactly what I have in mind for Sheffield. So basically, I have my best numbers that I've been able to hit a couple of times for some of them. And my plan is to simply reproduce that on the platform at weight where it matters the most. So if I'm able to do that, I think we could be looking at around 730 total. So maybe slightly below, slightly above, according to that. And so that will be roughly around 20 kilos above the world record total, which would like give me a solid like around 3%, I think. Um, which like, you know, then hopefully everybody competes at its best, but hopefully that would be enough to give me the win. So that's the way I view it right now.
Dude, that would be absolutely amazing. Now, looking at this, what do you think you need to do to bring that 730 onto the platform? Is it like just land the plane without getting too crazy? But you got to hit big weights in the gym to stimulate the response in your nervous system. So is it like the weight cut? What do you think? Because you've hit big numbers in the gym before, and
Yeah.
sometimes things go awry when you hit the platform, and sometimes it's there, which makes it all the more exciting. Well, what do you think it's going to be to land that plane at Sheffield so that it's 730?
So I think you said something very, very interesting, and it's you need to train hard. And because in 2022, I trained too hard, I burned myself a couple of times. Like you said, not being able to participate during a meet because like I tweaked my back or something like that. So after that, I had that thing where Worlds 2023 on my prep, I was fearless. Like it wasn't, I was just fearless. I was like, everything is going to plan out perfectly and I'm going to be at my prime, at my best for Worlds. And that's kind of how it happened. And after that, during training, I had one, like it wasn't a back tweak. It was like more so a signal. You know what I mean? So I felt something. And when that happened, I had like nightmares of 2022.
Mm.
And because of that, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm getting injured prior to French nationals, because my goal for 23 was to reclaim all of the titles. So I had reclaimed worlds, but if I didn't reclaim nationals and Euros, for me, my goal wasn't 100% accomplished, you know. And so what happened was after worlds, I started dial things back in training. So training more carefully, more cautiously, without that same energy that I had for my world's prep. And you know what happened was after Euros, I did a lot of like self-reflection, whether it be technique, whether it be programs, whether it be all of those things. I did a lot of self-reflection. And that's where I realized I started training with more fear than I used to. Like 2022, I was fearless too much, burnt myself, did some mistakes, paid the price for it. 23, at the beginning, like especially for Worlds, I think I was exactly in the middle. I was training fearless, hard, but staying more calm and focused. And then because I had that small tweak and felt something for my French nationals prep, I think I started training instead of training like without any fears. I started training with some fears, and then be like, oh, if I push it too much now, then maybe do this, maybe do that. So because of that, I changed my program. So I removed one squat. I squat 4 times a week since my prep for French nationals, and even like for Euros, I was training quote unquote only 3 times a week for squats. You know, stuff of that nature. Um, and I think now, and I got that realization after Euros. I was like, man, like I'm not going to win Sheffield. I'm not going to win like the GOAT debate, the powerlifting GOAT debate, by holding back. There is no way. And so the biggest change that I have right now is when I say I came back to that 2023 World's prep for me is not only physically, but also mentally. I'm like, I'm fearless. Like right now, I did some sets. I don't post everything always, but I did some sets in squats, for instance, that I never did in my life. Like period, never did in my life those sets. Like big volume weight, one big set, or a very, very intense training session, whatever. And I'm like fearless in my head. I'm like, there is no way my body will fail me this time. And so I would say that's one of the biggest differences. It's that I'm back to my 100% in terms of training, and I'm like fearless. Nothing will happen to me up until Sheffield. After, we don't know, but up until Sheffield, I'm like not gonna be broken.
It's dude, listen to you talk about it makes you pumped up. Makes you
Yeah.
like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna be fearless too about something. It's like,
You know, sometimes you're too cautious. You know, you have to be cautious. That's 100%. But if every time you feel a little something, you're like, oh, and then you dial things back 3 weeks, then that's not how you're going to beat Jesus. That's not how you're going to beat Keiko. That's not how you're going to beat all of those guys. You know what I mean? So now in my head, I'm like, hopefully everything goes well. But if that doesn't go well, honestly, I don't care about just participating in Sheffield. Like I don't go there to be eighth or fifth, or I want to go there to win. And so that's what I was saying earlier was I would have so much hate for myself if I'm like doing it halfway and then I'm like, oh, fifth at Sheffield. No, I don't care. That's not, I don't care about that. I want that gold. I want that first place. And so I cannot train as if I'm aiming for the fifth place, although I'm aiming for the first place. When you're aiming for the first place, you have to train like you aim for the first place. And for nationals and Euros, that's not what I was doing. I was training as if I was aiming for the fifth place. And at that moment, I didn't need that because I was far ahead for nationals. I was far ahead for Euros. So I didn't need to be 100% my best all out in order to win. But for Sheffield, that will be the case. So now I'm like, okay, ready to take all of the risks. And it's not like if my body breaks, so be it, kind of like that, but more so, I know my body won't fail me this time, exactly like it didn't fail me for Worlds 23.
It's it's um it's kind of like you're there and you're like, I have that feeling back again. And you
Yeah,
recognize it when you feel it.
yeah, 100%.
And sometimes when it's gone, you don't even realize it's gone. You're just operating
Yeah,
and it took a minute, like, hang on a second, it takes some time goes by and you're like, something feels a little different.
yeah,
And then a little reflection, and you're like, oh, I'm not going all out because I know I don't need to. I don't need to. I can't stimulate it if it's not there. I'll show up, I'll grind, I'll do everything. But when it comes back, like something like Sheffield, and you feel it back in you, then you're like, oh, wow. Now that I feel it, yeah, I remember what this feels like. And this was not present the second half after Worlds. I didn't need it. Maybe it's better I didn't because I would have burned out. Maybe it's better it wasn't there for Euros, French nationals, because you can't keep that up. But
yeah,
it's here
100%.
now. But it's
Yeah,
here now. And now it's back. And hearing you talk about, look, I'm not here. I remember seeing you at the first Sheffield. And the first Sheffield was at the conclusion of your horrendous 2022. And you were there with like Leah Tiff and the squad, the French squad, and we had an amazing time. And I remember you saying, I will be back at this Sheffield, but I will not be in the crowd. I will not be helping in the warm up. I will be participating. And that was after everything that happened in 2022. And we all know 2023, the leveling up was only going to get worse with the competition in the 66s. And you were like, I will be back and I will be competing. And now that you're here, and you're true to your word, my friend, and now that you're here, yeah, yeah, it'll be good if I come in fifth. It would be great if I podium. No.
no.
What happens? What happens if you win this? What does that do for your legacy? I mean, look at I said this is in all the pro mills leading into the first Sheffield. We are going to establish who is the king of powerlifting and who is the queen of powerlifting. The king of kings, the queen of queens. Who's number one? All the world champions are here. You win this. Is that you?
You know, it's hard to say. It's very, very hard to say. Because I'm doing this. I have three things. I want to show to myself first that my strength is up there amongst the best of the best. I just want to prove myself that I'm one of the most, at least as far as powerlifting is concerned, powerful people on this planet. Then my dad will be there. Hopefully, like if his health allows it, my dad will be there. And so that will be because so my dad didn't know anything about Sheffield, okay? I won Worlds and then, we started to have that Sheffield conversation. And then I think probably my friends told him what it was and everything because after I was done with the anti-doping test and everything, my dad comes to me and he's like, oh, I'll be back for Sheffield. And so I was like, oh, how do you know what Sheffield is and that I was qualified and everything? And so, obviously Sheffield means a lot to me as a powerlifting fan and athlete and everything. But because like my dad got involved, it means even more to me because like that's a meet he's involved in and he knows what's about and everything. So then that means a lot to me because I want to say that after my one at Worlds 2023, we experienced some things with my dad that we'd never had before. So it was very meaningful for me to win because of that. Not only because, I wanted to dedicate that win to him, but also because we linked up in a way different than before. Because so I think I probably told you that, but my dad wasn't very happy when I dropped out of my law school for powerlifting. And so that created some tensions between us, because he was like, yeah, you're not dropping out of university. And I was like, yeah, I'm dropping out because I have something else that I want to pursue. And then obviously as time go and everything just calms and chills out. But then I think he realized that I found my place in this world through powerlifting, and the way he was celebrating that win with me uh, meant that he acknowledges the path that I chose. And for me, that's important, because although I would have gone that path no matter what, like whether my dad agrees or not, the fact that at the end of the day he agrees and he's like, you were not mistaken, to me that means a lot, because that's my dad, right? So so I'm like, if I win Sheffield, I'm not saying 100% that's the case, but some people will be like, Pana is the GOAT, at least like that year and everything. So, I'm like, how cool would that be to share that with my dad? Like, not only did your son like drop out of university to pursue powerlifting, but he's quite good at it, to the extent that some people would claim that this year he's the GOAT. So that's number two. And then, like I told you, number three, man, I want to do it for my people. I want to do it for friends. I think like at at the Sound Worker meet we had, I can't remember how many people came to me and they were like, "Hey, we took our plane tickets for Sheffield. We're coming to see you lift." And in my head, I'm like, how crazy is that? Like, people are willing to take a train, a plane, hotel reservations, tickets for the event just to watch me compete. Obviously, they're going to watch the whole event, right? But just even if it's 10% of them that want to see me lift, for me, it's like I said, to me, powerlifting is just that thing where when I was competing, 20 people would show up, and not for me, just like 20 people, like the moms and dads and friends of the other athletes. And it would be like, woohoo. And now when you see how crazy powerlifting is, to the extent that people are willing to take planes and tickets and hotels just to see you lift, man, I want to do it for my people. I want to do it for friends. And I'm like, if I win, hopefully we make things crazy in France, even crazier than they are right now for powerlifting. But yeah, to me that would be the best way for me to give back to my people, to my country, to the federation also, because I think that would be cool for the French Federation to have a French lifter winning a meet as prestigious as Sheffield. So yeah, that's what it would mean for me. So that wouldn't necessarily mean, hey, Pana, you're the king of powerlifting, whatever, but that would have mean that I'm a strong dude, and that would have allowed me to make my people proud, make my dad proud, make my country proud. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. So so yeah. And then, obviously that would probably cement my place as one of the best athletes of our sport, which is cool also.
Yeah, so I got a few things I'm going to pack on this. First off, it would absolutely make you the king of powerlifting, but you're too modest. But I will sing your praises and make those posts and whatever. So don't worry about that. And like I'm commentating, so I'm going to say all the sound bites. You'd be the king. You'd be the king. In terms of, for more context for people listening, when you told your dad that you were dropping out of law school, it wasn't like you were going to school for philosophy. God bless anyone listening who is going to university for philosophy. But if you told your dad, I'm dropping out of philosophy and I'm going to do this, he might have said, yeah, I expected that. So you could, get a job, right? Because the philosophy factories there's not a lot of them. But you were going to school for law school. The visions he had. And you said, I'm dropping out of law school of all schools to jump into powerlifting at a time. This is 2000, what, 16, 17, 18,
Yeah, 17.
2017. There was no infrastructure in place for you to have a career or anything in powerlifting. I don't, majority of people listening to this podcast probably weren't even involved in the sport at the time, but if you were, there was nothing. There was
Right.
like, we had a live stream, sure. But there was like, you don't make, I don't even know. We had so few full time coaches in 2017. I mean, a handful all over the world. The social media hadn't picked up yet. King of Lifts was around for 1 year at that point, only 1 year. I've been commentating Worlds for 1 year. We're just refining the stream, let alone like Sheffield and what that looks like. We're just refining things at that point. Like the podcasts, like again, very, very minimal coaching. I mean, for you to be like you literally had to make something out of nothing. You weren't just telling your dad, I'm jumping into an industry that's established, don't worry, from a lawyer or whatever that might look like with that degree to jumping into an equally established industry that don't worry, we're all good because here it is. No, I'm jumping into a shallow pond without many fish for me to catch. And I'm just gonna make it happen. And your dad would be like, with what? And you not to say the whole story again, but you literally had to make it. You had to like go out, learn English, grab English programs in classrooms that Mike T was offering through reactive training systems, sit in these, learn the programming, bring it back to France, teach people who didn't speak English, who needed the translation, become that conduit, bring up through you. The amount of world champions has come through you already, and blah blah blah, and international people we've talked about at length. But when I first met you, the old story goes, now it's legendary. Let me introduce myself. You stopped me in the halls of 2019. My name's Pana. To my left is Noemi Alibert. To my right is Leah Bavois, and we are the future of powerlifting. And I'm like, thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Let's see what happens with these kids. They seem nice. And the rest is history. But like, you had to make all this. And so first off, your dad now seeing what all happened, not just with you as an athlete, but with what you built in France. Yes, you helped build this in France. You didn't just win titles. You put on massive meets. You popularized it through social media. You brought in this high level coaching. Now there are other coaches. Yes. There are other meets. There are other athletes. Yes. But at the time there wasn't. You walk so others could run, and you're still running and you're still keeping pace, which is phenomenal. Usually people don't keep pace when other people enter the fold. They just fall off. You haven't. You've leveled up. But people don't fully understand. And now that I look back, I remember early days saying you are the leader of the French Revolution when it all started years ago. And I remember saying that years ago. And that's with the progress you made years ago with converting English programming and programming methodologies into French and bringing up athletes and what you were doing with that at that level and creating some world champions. That was then I said you were leading the French Revolution. Now, when I look at what's happening in France, I didn't even have any idea how far this would go. It's almost like when Muhammad Ali said I am the greatest over and over before I even knew I was. I just said it over and over, and people around me started believing, and I started believing. And before you know it, he's like, holy shit. And it became like, I just said it over and over and over and over. And I swear to God, man, from when I first met you and I started seeing these signs and I started saying that to like now, it's like undeniable. It is insane what you've accomplished with your team and everything, but the team that you've helped bring around you from Silent Worker to SBD France to all of this and your impact in the game now for sure. It is that. It is like you win Sheffield and you're like, I want to do this for France. My God, man. I don't know, man. It's quite the era.
I think I think that would be I can't remember where I saw one of your posts. Was it a story or something where you had like can't remember what the theme was, but you had different flags. So the American flag, and then you had like the two biggest flags were the American flag and then the French flag. And when I saw that post, I rethought about what you just said with like me going to talk to you like at Worlds 2019, where I told you, hey, we're French, and you didn't talk. So you didn't talk. I remember what was happening was we were listening to the preview show, and I think you didn't give, like according to us, right, enough credit to the French lifters, and so
Mm,
that's where I approached you. I was like, hey, you know what? Uh, you should maybe look up to some of those French lifters because you might be surprised. And
mhm,
seeing now that France has emerged as like one of the biggest countries in the sport, it just shows like the how far um, along we came across. And yeah, now for me, that would mean so much. And so that's also how I'm training with that in mind. And sometimes when I post a story of like like 20 days out from Sheffield, whatever, some people are like, oh yeah, whole France is behind you, my man. Like we cheer for you and everything. And I feel that. Like I feel that in my heart. So yeah, I don't know exactly how I would feel about it, but one thing is for sure, I'll do my best to win for France. And if that happens, be sure that we'll do something crazy over here. We'll figure it out what, sorry, but we'll do something in France. But that would be insane for for like our sport in my country. That would be so cool.
dude, you win this? Are you kidding me? I
Yeah.
better see a parade in Paris. I don't know
Yeah,
who the mayor of Paris
on the
is or
Eiffel
whatever. I better
Tower.
see something. That's enough. Enough
I'll,
already.
I'll go jump or like from the Eiffel Tower with like something like the trophy or something, and
Parachute, though, please. The
yeah,
parachute,
parachute, yeah, obviously parachute, yeah, obviously.
because you will make the papers without the parachute. I guarantee you. But that's
Also,
not what
yeah.
we need. but
Yeah,
but I remember initially when they were talking about who's going to be at Sheffield. Initially, it was who's going to be the 66.
yeah,
And I know you were hoping towards possibly Brian Lee, a rematch with possibly
yeah,
Brian Lee.
yeah.
We end up getting Kyoto. Does it matter at this point? At that point, you wanted Brian Lee if possible. Kyoto's going to be there. And now are you like, does it matter what 66? Because you're eyeing the whole thing now. Now
No,
are you like, you know what? I
that
don't.
doesn't. No. So I was like, the question was like, if you have a 66 matchup, who would you like it to be? That's why I answered Brian Lee. Um, but like again, the question was, if you have a 66 matchup, who do you want it to be? Honestly, I don't care because I don't care about what Kyoto will do because for me, it's not a meet me against him. Like I'll give you an example. Let's say I finish fourth and I beat him. I really don't care at all. Like 0% of me is interested in that because if he wants and if he shows up, then we'll have that battle at Worlds 24, and that's where that 66 kilo battle will matter to me at least. Because again, now I'm eyeing the whole thing. I'm not eyeing. So I view Kyoto the same way I view everybody else. So Jesus, Keiko, Gavin, Kalye, like you name them, I view them all the same. They're all against me. I'm against them. They're all my enemies at that meet on that day. And I really don't care about like the 66 kilo confrontation because again, that confrontation will happen at Worlds, and that's where it settles. That's where you settle who's the best 66 kilo in the world. And in 23, that was me. So yeah, I honestly don't care much about like that confrontation with him.
Yeah.
Like at Worlds, I know myself. Like I would be the guy to eye him in the warm up room and like have that game of like I'm going to crush you. Not at Sheffield.
Is it is it gonna be like Jesus that you're eyeballing like that, or like is it this
I'll
is like a different
probably
type of situation now?
yeah.
You're like that's an awkward. You're smart eyeing, and Jesus is like, what the fuck? I never seen this
I'll
side of Pena before.
yeah, that's it. The thing is, that makes sense when you're doing that on somebody pretty much your frame. then trying to do that with a guy twice my size, that would be
You're
hard. But
bumping him, in the
yeah,
hallway, like, yo, we got a problem,
imagine,
man.
hey, watch out, man.
You see me walking here. He's he's like, what the fuck is this all about? But on the flip side, you do you rise to the occasion, and Russ talks about this when you have someone to focus on. When you have, like, you've said this before on the podcast, you'll look for somebody and
Yeah.
be like, this guy. Do you
Oh,
have that
they're
for
on my list.
Sheffield?
Oh yeah, they're
And
on my list.
do you have it for Sheffield? And why is it Gavin Aiden?
No, honestly, they're on my list. Like, I'll have a bad day and then I'll scroll through Insta and I'll see like Talia do something or Jesus or Keiko, and I'll be like, oh, I'm fired up now. Oh
Really?
yeah. It's I think I need that confrontation. And knowing that right now their training looks phenomenal, like pretty much all of them, like Headlund, Gavin, Jesus, Kalye, like, I can't name all of them from the top of my head, but those guys, like, their training is going phenomenal. And so I'm like, I'm going against them. So that's what I was saying earlier was I cannot um, aim for victory. I cannot aim for that first place if I'm not doing my best, because they are doing their best and I want to beat them. So now, yeah, Sheffield, it's like I'm against them. It's you wanted the champions against the other champions, and that's how I view it. I don't know how they view it, but they're against me and I'm against them. So that's why I'm not too focused on Kyoto as a 66, because it's like I don't think he will be my toughest opponent for Sheffield because of the system, right? So obviously I'm looking at probably like my toughest competition at Sheffield. And again, like the names I just mentioned, Jesus, Keiko, Kalye, Gavin, Hedlund, those names. And yeah, they're doing great in training. And because I want to beat them at Sheffield, I have to do even better than them. But at the end of the day, that's the beauty of the sport, right? Um, at Sheffield, everything is reset. Like what you've accomplished in training or a year ago, like that doesn't matter. What matters is what you do on midday at that moment, and everybody facing off everybody. That's exactly what happened at Worlds 23. People were like, yeah, but Kyoto did this and Brian did that. But I was like, I don't care, because we reset all of that on midday. And so that's the same for Sheffield. Everything is reset on midday. And that's where we battle out to see who's the champion of champions.
Now, you have always approached competition like this. Going into Worlds, you've said that. You were like, great. You
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
I mean, you had Kyoto did over the world record. Kasim San held the world record. Brian Lee was capable. I forget what his total was leading in, but it was old.
Brian did the biggest 66 kilo meet total in comp ever.
Gotcha. Yeah. And not an international meet. That's why I wasn't wrong.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
national.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
national.
Thank you. Yeah. So they were all, but you had said, and I remember asking you about it, and you're like, wasn't at Worlds, wasn't at that day, wasn't with everybody, together. We're pushing each other, wasn't those conditions. And you were able to not get it all intimidated by that.
Yeah.
You were respectful of it enough that it's okay. There's this expression with fear where they say fear controlled is a good thing and fear out of control is a bad thing. It's like fire. Fire, you could warm your house with it, you could cook with it, you could feed your family due to that. It gets out of control, you could burn down your house. Fear is the same. Mike Tyson talks about fear is your friend. You think it's not, but it only through the fear of your competition, not unhealthy, but a good, healthy fear of, I dropped the ball, I'm not going to win this. Kind of like going into Worlds where you put your foot on the gas. When no one was at Euros, and not no one, but the competition was far less at Euros, far less at French Nationals. You didn't have the foot on the gas. You didn't have to. The fear wasn't there, not the respectful fear.
Yeah.
Worlds, you felt it, and you're like, I need my foot on the gas. I'm not fearful in that. It's just enough that I'm going to warm my house, feed myself, and I'm getting strong. It's not out of control. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not going to burn the house down. And that's where the 2022, you kind of burn the house down. It was a little too hot in that kitchen. The same thing coming into this Sheffield, where you have like a good, healthy fear for what can happen. And I think that's going to be pivotal for you. Now, looking at this, so I wanted to get your impression as because we have some USAPL crossovers coming over in 2024. We don't know everybody yet, but we're seeing numbers come over. We're seeing already PA nationals are stacked with individuals. What is your impression of these people from USAPL? Did you watch USAPL nationals to see the 67.5s, which isn't exactly 66, kind of close? Did you watch? Do you pay attention? What's your impression of these guys coming over? Is there anybody that you're keeping your eye on and like, okay, he has crossed over. I got to keep my eye on him. He has not. I'm paying attention. And give me your impression of that.
In a way, I kind of don't care because like I told you, I don't care who's on the roster, who's not, who's like you just show up at Worlds and we settle it on that day. Like for me personally, for people in my weight class. Um, so yeah, so honestly, I haven't checked like who's switching, who's not switching whatsoever because again, I don't care. I will care like the day of
Mm,
Worlds 24. I don't know the date exactly yet, but I'll care on that day. Prior to that, I kind of don't care. Although, like, there's one name I want to mention is Charlie Yang because I used to follow him through social media, and when he was a 59, and then I saw that he switched to 66, and I can't remember which meet I watched, and I think he did like a 700 total or slightly above that. Can't remember exactly. And I was like, whoa, like that guy was a 59 some years ago, and now he's a 66 totaling 700. So I'm like, that's very impressive. So that's the only name, and I think he's switching over, right? If I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
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 So that's one of the only names that I have in mind in my weight class at least. But then, you know, do I watch the USA? Like, did I watch the USAPL Nationals? Yeah, of course, because that's a show. I'm a fan of powerlifting. But then, for instance, like some big names like Brendan Petrie, obviously, I'm very hyped that he's switching over. Russ, obviously, Ashton, Bob. Like, I really want to see, like, from Perkins also. Although I'm a Taylor Atwood fan, I want to state it for the record. Like, I'm hyped. Also, he's switching over because at the end of the day, what we want as athletes is to know who's the best. And like it's weird when there is a guy that's not in your weight class, not competing under the same circumstances as you, and then you're like, oh, like is it the best? Am I the best, etc. So at the end of the day, that route was open to everybody from the get-go, like the IPF route, and some of them decided not to take it. And I think you cannot not take that route and then claim whatever you want to claim. So just take that route, do your nationals with Powerlifting America, and then whoever comes in whichever weight class, I think I'll probably assume that the other IPF world champions would think the same way that I do, is just show up and we'll know what happens then. Prior to
And
that,
that's
I don't care.
and that's exactly it. Where because you've been through this, where you've heard when people coming to worlds and then after worlds, you're like, well, where are these totals that I was supposed to be afraid of?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Where
Like,
I've seen you've
Ryan
seen big
pulled
totals at
three
nationals before.
Ryan pulled 320 or 315 plus a week out from Worlds, and he didn't pull that at Worlds. Like not shedding, not throwing shade on the guy, because it's not what you do in training you'll do in comp. But what I mean by that is, again, we don't care about what you didn't do or had to. You just do it on midday. But what I want to say is, it's important to post though, because if we don't post as athletes, then there's no there's no interest around the sport. You know what I mean? So you should post, you should do like whatever you want to do. Everybody's entitled to whatever they want to say. Like if you want to pull 320 a week out and be like, oh, I'm going to win this, then that's fine. But me personally, as an athlete, the way I view it is, cool, you posted, you created some hype around the event. That's awesome. But then at the end of the day, what matters to me is the way we'll settle it out on midday. But then, and same goes for the USAPL guys. But although, like, what I would say is, I think that's a cool thing that we get some of those talents back in the IPF because bigger matchups, bigger athletes, that's good for the sport.
I 100% agree that I want people to post. It is how we advertise for sure. We need it.
Yeah,
If everyone did this whole, okay, guys, peaking now, last 4 weeks, going into radio silence with my major post. If everybody did that, we're in
I don't
trouble.
care about the sport then. You know what I mean?
We're in serious trouble.
Like, I don't care at all. Like people are like, yeah, but like with the football or with basketball, can you imagine that those athletes, they compete, they compete multiple times a week.
Yeah.
And they're usually competing against those other athletes. It's like there's a physical contact in between them. You know what I mean? So imagine if they're like, no, guys, we'll have a game like once every month or once every 2 months. The sport is dead. You know what I mean?
We die. We die.
That's it. And for us powerlifters, it's what we do in training that should be posted. Not only that, but that. So, for instance, like I'll post my 730 total, and then some comments will be like, yeah, but he won't do that in meet. Yeah, but that's like people will care because I posted that, people will be like, oh, Pana, like maybe he's able to do 730, and then some people will be like, nah, 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 he won't do it. He'll be like 30 kilos less than that. But those people will show up not for the same reasons, but they'll show up on the live stream
Yeah.
because they want to see what I do. So you should post, you should talk your shit, you should say what you want to say, what you think, as long as like to me personally, as long as it's authentic. So again, like the example I gave with Brian Lee's deadlift, like I don't want to say it in a negative way because again, because he posted that, people were like, oh, maybe Bana is in trouble then, and then that created more hype around the event. And for me, that's a good thing because then I beat a guy that deadlifted 320 the week prior, so people are like, oh, Bana is very good. So that's a good thing for the sport. Just what I want to say is, as athletes, you shouldn't be that impressed by that. You should be like, okay, cool, he did that. That's great. I also did my share fair in training, and then we show up on midday.
You're 100% right with the 730. Some people will say, yeah, that
100%.
he's peaking, he's coming. Some people will be like, nah, he won't have that on that day. Perfect. That's called a sports debate. That's what we wouldn't have if you didn't post it. That's
Yeah.
what every sport has. Every sport, when we're coming into the Super Bowl, World Series, World Cup, whatever it is, people like, look at this team, look at that team. They're looking at stats, the whole nine. We wouldn't have any of that because, to your point, we would have people compete 2, 3 times a year. We're dead in the water. We're not going anywhere. Social media changed the game for us because people post. It kills me when people don't realize that. It kills me. Its sponsors are like, God, please post. Please
Yeah.
get some traction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't get it. They're like, well, how come I don't get sponsors? Look at my numbers. Look at my, yeah, but you give us nothing. All year you give us nothing. How come I'm not getting nearly the attention I deserve? You got to build the desire, the supply and demand. That's how the market is. Supply the people what they're demanding, and they want to see you train. They don't want to see your low end working weight, your back
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
weights, or it's
And
boring. Sets of
sometimes
five.
people, yeah, sometimes people are like, yeah, but now you only post singles. But I'm like, yeah, but like if I post a set of five, like what does it tell you? It doesn't tell you anything. So what I'll do is usually like those sets and weights, I'll post them in the stories because that's less. And you keep everybody like entertained and people want to see what I do, etc. But you should post, and then sometimes, like for instance, um, like you said, polarizing posts I think are the best because people will talk about it. Like you have not saying that that's what you should do, but if you have a borderline squad, then you'll have people talking, yeah, oh, depth borderline, etc. And then people will be like, yeah, but he never had those issues before, and that creates, like you said, conversations about athletes, about the sport, and without that, powerlifting won't go anywhere. So yeah, as athletes, I think we should post. I would agree with you. I think like hiding what you're doing, if you're hiding to do what you do, if you're hiding what you're doing, because like in 2 weeks from now, you're going to have a massive meet. Let's say Telerat would, lock down. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't showing a lot, and then boom, you have a 800 kilo plus total. You're like, oh shit. Okay, that creates a thing. But then if you're hiding what you're doing, and then you not necessarily do something very, very, very impressive after that, you're just getting the hype of the sport, and you're not doing a favor, like you said, to you, to yourself, to your sport, but also like to the fans, to the sponsors, to everybody at least.
And Taylor wasn't like he would supply stuff on social media to get people's appetite. Like he would post things that would
Yeah,
get people talking. And not everyone could do that. Remember
yeah.
that one post that was like amazing where he took a post picture. It was a still picture, posted it and said,
You
"You
think
guys
you're
think you're
close,
close.
but you have no
You have
idea.
no idea." And it
Yeah.
was like, and
Yeah,
that's
that was
before
funny.
he did his 838.5. And it
Yeah,
was like such a cold line in that caption. If you know how to play the game,
yeah,
okay, fine. Because he didn't need to post and he got all the traction he needed. And the buzz around him was like, oh my God, what's he doing? That to your point about creating suspense, okay. But
yeah.
I
Could
got
work.
news for you. Like for everyone else, it's like you're not doing that. You're not creating the suspense. You're just being radio silent and nobody knows what you're doing. And it's not helping the sport grow. So when you post your singles and they're grinders, yeah, it's helping the sport grow. Talking about the sport grow, what do you think's going on with 2024, 2025? I had Jesus Oliveras on here, and we both came to a conclusion here. Looking at, like, you've seen what the world championships have looked like from when you first started showing up to now, and it's entirely different. And we have, TV deals, Eurosport, more and more stuff are going to happen in the future, I'm sure. More and more avenues. And when you're on massive television live and everyone's watching, that's when companies, other sponsors look and be like, oh, you guys are on this, that, and the other. You guys have this kind of audience. Okay, how do we get involved? And things feel bigger for them. It's not smaller where you just have a live stream. And on top of that, we still do have the live stream. And it's on the Olympic Channel live stream, which had 400,000 views and still is on, IPF, SBD streams, etc., as well as the normal powerlifting outlets. So it's all the normal plus more, plus more, plus more. And of course, Sheffield's getting bigger and bigger every single year. And now we have World Games that just went classic, all at the same time. And whenever we think powerlifting has reached its, like, we're like, wow, couldn't picture this year the year before. In 2022, we had no idea 2023 would feel like that. 2024 and 2025 are going to be the years. I honestly think 2025 will be it. I know some stuff that's being organized in the background that is going to be massive for powerlifting in general. It's going to take a minute, but there's some stuff getting organized, as well as this Worlds is a qualifier for the World Games, which is massive in terms of it's multi-sport and there's TV deals being made as well as Sheffield's going to level up and every year Worlds levels up. What do you think the next 2 years are going to look like? And the growth that you're seeing in Europe, France.
What I would say is, if Worlds happened in France, then that's it. That's done.
Why has it not happened yet? It
I don't
sounds like a
know.
no-brainer.
I don't know. Yeah, to me too. But um, yeah, it's weird because like Worlds 21 and Worlds 23 completely different in terms of like environment, involvement, like people caring about it, etc. So I would say it's very hard to view it because like I'll give you another example. Like for instance, Euros dead. Like no one showed up at Euros. And I think that's maybe something that the IPF could like really think through is where do those major events happen? Because I'll give you an example, like people are traveling to watch us lift at Sheffield. And why wouldn't be people involved and interested in traveling to watch us lift at Worlds? I think that could happen. But if Worlds is in, let's say, I'll give you like Spain, Portugal, Italy, like those countries where people would go for vacations, like the rest of the year, compared to like, all the love in the world for people from those countries, but for instance, Lithuania or stuff like that. Like, I don't know a lot of people that go on vacation like in the summer in Lithuania. And if they do, like, they'll probably go to the main city, main town, and not something 3 hours away. So what I would think is, before that, like maybe Worlds 2017, people weren't interested in watching World's powerlifting competition, but now they are. And like, let's say I am interested and I want to go watch Worlds, and it happens in a country where I'm like, oh, I'll be able to have mini vacations plus watch the event. That's nice. I'll book that, rather than a country where like I don't even know. That's a far foreign country. I don't like nobody talks that language. It's very, very far. It's not in the main city. All of those things. So what I would say, one thing is very important to me is actually the location, because if you create an event that attracts a lot of people, then it's completely different for everybody. When you watch the live stream, when you hear the crowd shout, when you have those shots of the crowd, that changes a lot. That changes the perspective that you have on the event. So I would say that was number one. Number two was, prior to that, sometimes worlds, um, like the competition was taking place at hours and times where people weren't awake, like 9 in the morning or 8 in the morning, to watch a live event. Whereas, for instance, for us, like I'm talking as a European, right? But for football, all of the main games are played around 8 p.m., 7 p.m., 6 p.m., stuff like that. People are done working, they're back home, they can watch it on the TV or on the live stream or whatever. So I think, to me, those two things are probably the biggest changes that could have a positive impact about like the involvement of people, like the viewership, and all of those things. But then, I think as the athletes grow, as the sports grow, like it will drive more and more attention for the live stream events and stuff like that, and that will create, that snowball effect. Um, but yeah, I think, in order, like you said, to top it off, like 2025, for instance, what I would say is make it happen in a country that's like tourist friendly, easy to access, and then you just have a bowling show where every session is like crowd stacked, everybody's yelling, and that's how you create hype.
What do you think the impact is having it on something like Eurosport with a huge amount, like millions of people are going to watch it? So potentially dragging people who just flipped on TV and seen it live. If they saw your session live, they're like, oh my God, I didn't think it was like that. And they see the crowd and they see you hit the platform. Out of let's say 2 million people watching, how many people are you going to grab that'll become either sponsors or athletes or whatever?
I have this weird relationship with TV myself, that I don't watch TV, like zero, never. And I know a lot of close friends that same, like don't watch TV at all. So because of that, I would be tempted to say I'm not sure about that impact. But obviously, like, that's my personal preference. That's the culture that like I live in. And also my friends also don't watch the TV. So, it's so I would say, I think the involvement is big, having the TV. But I think 100%, social media matters more.
What I should say is when I say TV, maybe I'm misspeaking. I mean like streaming services that
Okay, okay,
people
okay.
go to for their traditional sports. So like
Okay.
right. Because live sports is still alive.
Yeah,
I agree, TV's dying. TV's dying. I think TV's dead. Like we used to remember it. But those sports packages, I tune in for my sports on this sports package streaming, and oh, there's powerlifting on, and they stick around.
yeah,
But
okay, I
maybe you
see.
don't watch like that either, though.
Yeah, yeah, I do, because sometimes I watch MMA, stuff like that. So I have that package
Okay.
with some channels in France, and but yeah, that, like, me personally, no. But yeah, I can see how it could be cool. But I think what I would say is I would flip it around. So more so because people will care more and more about powerlifting, there will be a demand, and then some big channels will be like, "Oh, we have to broadcast powerlifting." That's how I would view it. So, and to that point, I think like social media would matter more to me, at least. Again, with that thought process.
I think social media is still number one for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's everything else is an added on, and we see what we get. If sponsors want to see what are you on besides just social media and they want to see certain things, fine, or what have you. It's an added on. Our our infrastructure, the meat and bones of it, is for sure social media in our live stream, and we could do a lot with just that.
100%.
And and to your point about worlds in France, my God, man, if you can get 700 people to show up to a silent worker meet, can you
Yeah,
imagine
no,
what it would be like?
no, that would
It,
be like
it
I
would be like
think
Sheffield. It would look like Sheffield, or it would be
honestly,
bigger than Sheffield.
honestly, man, like just talking about it, like I got chills. I'm getting hyped up. Like I'm envisioning crazy stuff in my head. But if you have one world where it's like a rock concert, it's crazy. Then you create that anticipation every year. You know what I mean? To me, like there's, you have esports events. I'm not talking about like the bigger games, but some smaller esport events are like crazy stacked with crowds and everything. So, at Worlds this year, it was quite stacked in
Mm.
Malta. But like to give you the example for Euros, man, nobody was in the crowd, like nobody. So to me, it's not, in a way, it's not normal because right now we have the people caring about the sport. People care about the sport. And so, me personally, if I was a powerlifting fan, I would 100% travel to the world's location to watch the event live. But again, it has to be doable. So, I think obviously that's not as easy as I may be like making it sound. Um, but yeah, making it happen in countries where people would go for vacations, stuff like that. To me, that would create that could be the next step in terms of how big the event is. You know what I mean? Not necessarily saying that would like create a revolution for the sport, no, nothing, but just the event. And then if on one occasion you create a crazy event, then you create that anticipation for the next event for the years to come, and then you have something rolling that's cool. And I think that's kind of what we did with the silent walker meet, because people show up because they know they're going to have a good meet, they know there's going to be a crowd that's going to be cool, and so that's why they tune in the next year. So if you create that for worlds where, and that's worlds, like, besides Sheffield, you can't claim to give a better award than the world champion title that's given at worlds. So you
Mm.
have the you have the stack, you have everything. You just need to meet the right place. And honestly, I don't think like making it happen in Lithuania or those countries, to me, is the move. In order, if you want people to come over, to travel, to take the planes, to take hotels, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't know all what goes into like the selection process. I know hosting these massive events is very difficult
Yeah,
monetarily at
yeah,
this point.
100%.
And I don't know, some nations just can't put together the package that will, because it's getting so robust. To like the bigger we get, it's a blessing and a curse because we're getting so big that, yeah, if a nation could step up, they're like, okay, if you can handle this, then you get it. But not many nations can raise their hand. I bet you France could.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I think that would be awesome.
They got to put a bid. I don't even know if France has put a bid in yet. I don't know if they have ever. It's got to start there. Someone's got to raise her. Hey, talk to Anissa.
Yeah, she's on
Anissa's
that.
like,
She's
all
on
right,
the.
enough. Who are you talking to?
We already discussed that. We already had that conversation, like of what it would take to make it happen in France. Um, absolutely nothing official whatsoever. It could be done, not saying like for Worlds 25 or whatever, but it could be done. It just would require, like you said, a lot of planning, a lot of work because, of like monetary restrictions, because of a lot of things. So again, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying, yeah, easy, make it happen. I'm saying here is where I think, and that's maybe something where you're like, okay, maybe we could invest money as a sport because we know it's going to benefit the sport, it's going to benefit the development of the sport. So maybe that's something you invest money in order to make it happen in quote unquote more friendly countries, for people to show up.
We'll see. I got
Yeah.
faith. You guys got such talent over there. One you guys together can put together a package at some point when you're ready.
Yeah.
And,
Honestly, we'll try to make it happen. We'll try to make it happen.
and dude,
That would be insane, though. That would be fire.
I don't even know. You would need a venue like Sheffield or something. I don't know what the heck. It'll sell out. Like it'll be packed.
Yeah.
It'll be ram packed. And God bless anybody who's going against a French lifter that's in the running.
Yeah, that will be tough.
It's
Yeah.
going to be tough
Yeah.
because the French are passionate and like they yell and scream and like it is like nothing I've ever seen. Those sessions will be monumental. And if you're like a rival of one of the French lifters, oh wow, be careful. Be careful. Mind your P's and Q's on podcasts leading into it. I'll tell you that much. And it'll be electric in that room. Standing room only. People like are on their feet, faces painted, yelling, waving flags, and like it'll be
That would be so
crazy.
cool.
In the amount of people you get 700 people for a local meet.
Yeah.
You would have thousands for worlds.
Yeah.
My
And I think also because of like what's at stake. If there's a world title on the line, and like you said, there is a French guy that can make it happen, then people will show up 100%. So yeah,
for
that
sure.
that would be insane. So yeah, I might be dreaming about it tonight in my bed, being
Nah,
like,
it'll happen.
that would be
It'll
so cool.
happen. Just when I'm not sure. And like again, it's easy for me to say.
Yeah,
Putting it
for sure.
together has got to be insane. But if you guys look at if you guys put it together and there'll be like a team of people, and I know Anissa and all them are going to be involved. That is a behind the scenes. Let me see the behind the scenes of putting an event together. Not a lot of people do that. People do meet preps for the athlete. People do the competition of the athlete, the afterwards, the recap. I want to see if this thing comes to France, show us putting the event, a world championship together in like all the from the bid to because I know some of the background stories. People love a documentary of like film, like a music festival that was put together, like the whatever the Firefly or whatever festival that went crazy. Like there's people love those background stories of a major event coming together, all of the last minute shit that goes into it, and then the storylines that happen, and you could do a recap of the entire event. Like this would be a massive several series documentary piece as well, just that alone.
Yeah,
Just
could be.
that alone.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I would
keep that in
love
mind
to
if that
watch.
if that happens. We'll keep that in mind if that happens.
What so you had said previously in the podcast you thought the 66s were underperforming when you looked at the 74s.
Yeah.
Do you think the 66s are starting to perform at what you think they should be performing at, and that 2024 is where they're going to start leveling up, going deeper into
Yeah.
the 700s?
Yeah, I think so. In a way, I think, we have had some very, very talented 66s lately. And so, like, for instance, like you said, Worlds 23 was the most stacked year. And like we weren't in the 750 plus, you know what I mean? So either we all suck, or which I don't think is the case, right?
Right.
Or it's it takes a little more time. But yeah, I think if I'm able to make around 730 total at Sheffield, then yeah, obviously that would push the other guys um, to those extents. And when you see like, for instance, my best lifts in training, if you add them up, I'm around 740. Again, best lifts in training, that's not how it goes. But what I mean by that is the potential is there. Then between the potential and making it happen, there's like, there's room, right? But what I mean by that is it's possible. So what I would say is, especially if I do around that number, like around that 730 mark in Sheffield, then yeah, I'm sure we'll be looking at probably 730 above for World 24. And
Do you
then
think?
if we are there, I think we're catching up with the 74s.
Yeah, well, for sure. So is that really the message at Sheffield is like the leveling up as well?
Yeah,
Like you set that flag in the sand. Like you said, that will be the standard now. That
yeah,
everybody has to chase
yeah.
for everybody coming over.
Yeah, that's also something because I would say I'm a proud man, and so showing up that the weight class I'm the world champion of is a stacked weight class for me would be meaningful because again, I don't want to be the best um, of the weakest weight class in a way. You know what I mean? I want to be the best of one of the toughest weight classes. So yeah, so that's kind of like that. Very, very indirect though, like, that's not, oh, I'm setting the pace at Sheffield, I'm setting the pace for the remaining of the 66s. It's more so I have those things I want to accomplish, and I think by accomplishing those things, then there's that.
And you've helped popularize the 66s by being like one of the biggest stars in powerlifting, and you happen to be in the 66s. All the other 66s, we got some phenomenal 66s. They don't have the star power that you're bringing. It helps huge that you're there. So whether they openly say they're appreciative or not, I got news for you. If you're lifting against Panagiotis, if you weren't there, I don't know how hyped people are. We had the same problem in MMA until Conor McGregor showed up and he became the 145-pound champion. 145 pounds, by the way,
Yeah, that's my
is
weight class.
66 kilos.
Yeah,
Is 66
that's
kilos.
cool, right?
Nobody gave a fuck about that 145-pound, 66 kilo UFC division until Conor McGregor came around. And now it's like, you're welcome. Nobody cared about the 66s. Nobody. They're too small until Pena come around. And now everybody's like, this is one of the hottest divisions we have in powerlifting. And so at least with that too, the 66s can be like, okay, it's important to have your stars. Now Wasker is like, I want to do for the 59s what Pena did for the 66s. I mean, you have people also, you're giving hope and a little inspiration and showing the pathway where it can be done. It's not, we used to think we have cutoffs where people are going to stop watching at a certain point. Now we know, no, give them a storyline, give them some showdowns, and you have to lift weight that, I mean, you go into any gym and you squat 250, 551 pounds, everyone's going to stop and watch. Doesn't matter how big you are. You have to have crazy strength as well. So
Yeah. Yeah,
66s are there at this point.
I would say, for instance, no offense, but I would think that up until now, like those past years, the 120s weren't very hype. Although, they're big dudes. Like, for instance, Tony Cliff is a very entertaining lifter to watch compete, and he's a cool dude, etc. But it's not very like viewership friendly because, like you said, you want something. So, for instance, the 83s, why is it so stacked? Because a lot of men weigh 83 kilos, so it's very competitive. So it's always been stacked. Then the 93s, you have some very, very big names, and you have matchups and stuff like that. So I think that's maybe what happened to me with the 66s was, the story behind like how I won and then how I lost. And then, this year, 23 was like, oh, is Pana going to win or not? Or is somebody else going to take that crown? And, what I would say is it all comes down to that same thing we're talking about. Just talk, man. Like say your story, say what you want to say, be active on social media, do podcasts like the one we're doing right now. do those stuffs, because all of those stuff matter for people to care. Because you watch a game and then somebody tells you a story about one of the athletes, and suddenly you care about the athlete, and then you research that guy, and then you watch the other games of that team. That's how it happens. So if you're, like you said, if you're not telling your story, if you're not talking, if you're not using those tools that we have right now with the social media, then you're not giving people reasons to care. And if they, like me, I would be the first. Like, if you don't give me a reason to care, then I probably won't watch.
Mm.
Like, even powerlifting, like, if you give me a reason to care, then if there is a matchup, there's something, I'll watch 100%. If not, I'll be like, I'll just watch the replay or the results.
And you need showdowns. You need some competitiveness. You have that in this, and also you have an international field. So all the world is represented. So we have pockets all over the world watching. Like
Yeah.
66 is great for that. From Asia, Europe, North America, you know, like
Yeah.
all over the world made up the 66s. So we have pockets everywhere paying attention and watching. Where some weight classes, if it's too much, just heavy in one nation. We saw with USAPL, they thought we have tons of stars. Our nationals should get a lot of views. You chop out the rest of the world? I guess not, huh? I guess
Yeah, because
not.
for instance, like with Kyoda, he's probably one of the, I think, stronger Japanese athletes. And so a lot of people in Japan care about him because of that. And so maybe they'll watch our match with Kyoda. And without that, maybe, let's say, 50% of those Japanese viewers we wouldn't have because of
Mhm.
Kyoda not being there. So yeah, like you said, sometimes you have some people that represent um, a country or a region of the world or something. And I think, with Africa, we still have some room to grow. You know what I mean? If at some point we get some good African athletes, then that will drive also that attention towards there. Also, like South America, I think we still need some big names and good athletes from there. And then, maybe at that point, we'll have the whole world watching pretty much worlds.
For sure, those are markets that need to be expanded. And Asia started picking up. Asia's picking up. Thailand did a lot better than people anticipated. I think it was Junior Worlds, which is an indication of what's coming in the future. So there's in India, man.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah, yeah.
smokes, do they get traction? There's a gentleman he posts, he gets 175,000 likes. Apparently, well, India's got a massive population, but apparently, if you're Indian, Indians super support their own. So people have popped in my DMs once I posted it on the KOTL stories, and people from India were like, "You have no idea how much we support our own." They have people winning the Asian powerlifting championships, which the rest of the world don't super duper pay attention to in within our own community of powerlifting. They're winning Asian titles, and in India, they're having like freaking parades. It's crazy the people that like the things that are happening over there in Asia, just with the like just with India as well. So if India has a couple stars, the amount of views that will come in, if India had a 66 that could contend with you and one of your rivals was Indian, the amount of views that would jump up with all of France, all of India. Now we have an American, there's always going to be an American. Now look at the amount of views that stack up to your point. And Kyoto, sure, Japan's not a massive powerlifting nation, but how many? He's one of the biggest stars they have. So if they're watching anybody, they're going to watch Kyoto because he's in a hot division and he's trying. He's trying to popularize as much as he can, push as much as he can. And being invited to Sheffield 2 years in a row will help grow that market. This is how it's going to be done. Um, so we need people from different nations to start stepping up, not just one nation. But yeah, we'll see, man. The future's bright. Listen, my man, I have you. It's been over 2 hours already. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
We crushed. I know it's late as shit. It's Friday, so I appreciate the hell out of you hopping on this podcast, my friend. Before I let you go, what would you like to say to all of your followers and everyone who supported you up to this point through the highs and lows and what they have to look forward to for 2024?
So yeah, I just want to say thank you, because obviously I have had a lot of supporting friends, but also like worldwide, and that means a lot. To me, that really means a lot. And what I want to say is, prepare to see my absolute best in Sheffield in 20 days. Um, there is a thing where I say I'll bring my prime. I don't know if that's the way you say it also in English, bring my prime. But I'll bring my prime in terms of strength, performances, everything. And hopefully after Sheffield, we'll have a lot to celebrate and to share together. So yeah, that's like right now, there's nothing after Sheffield for me. Like it's I'm zoomed in like on Sheffield and nothing else matters right now. So let's do that. Have a blast, compete well, do good, hopefully win. That's what I'm aiming for. That's what I've been saying. And then after that, we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's get that W at Sheffield.
Dude, that would be the biggest of the biggest W's, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
you got Worlds, you collect Sheffield. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
And I know what you mean in terms of prioritizing. Like, look, I'm not even thinking about Worlds too much right now. I'll tell you the truth. You're 20 days out from Sheffield.
yeah, 100%.
I mean, how can you look past Sheffield of all of them? But yeah, man, I'm excited. I can't believe we're that close.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, me too.
Oh,
It's been passing so fast, but I've been training my ass off for weeks and weeks now. So honestly, Sheffield could be tomorrow. I would be ready. So just 20 more days to wait.
dude, I can't wait to see you guys again there too.
Yeah, that will be so cool. Like, well, we're going to have fun. We're going to compete, obviously, do our best, but then we're going to have fun.
Oh, we're gonna have fun. Lots of
Yeah,
fun. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming back on the podcast. I'm gonna see you in like 2.5 weeks, man.
my man. Thank you for
We'll,
having me.
we'll see you soon, my friend. And for everybody listening, please do subscribe, give us high ratings as per usual. Until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.